Hi everybody, it's Joe Usher here, and today we're going to look at Google Earth and how to use Google Earth as a resource for teaching senior end primary school geography, pretty much, and lower end secondary school geography, even if you will wanted to. But the power of it as a teacher resource, but also as a resource that children can use in the classroom also. So without further ado, I will share my screen. And the first thing to bear in mind is that you will, I suppose, go into your search bar, search for Google Earth, and launch Google Earth. Now, for me, I have apologies for that now. I have my work email at DCU is powered by Google. So I automatically have a Google account and therefore I'm logged in. You can see my little face here in the top right hand corner. And if you don't have a Gmail or Google account, you can set one up for free. So it's very, very easy to do. I advise you to do that. And once you do that, then you can log in because you'll be able to create your own projects here that you can actually share with children in your classroom. The first thing to do though, so when you open up Google Earth, you'll see that it actually brings you to the globe like this. You can drag it by left clicking on your mouse and dragging it around. It's actually great to have it on the screen, the interactive whiteboard, if you have that if you're lucky enough to have one in your classroom. But you can zoom down anywhere and you can zoom using the plus and minus down here in the bottom right hand corner, or by using your scroll or your double clicking your left hand side of your mouse. It's an excellent resource, even just for introducing countries and places to children. So, for instance, if we're to look at Ireland here, we'd be able to see here, obviously, it shows me where all the major cities are. It shows me the outline of the counties, international borders, etc. Um, and I could get children to look at, I suppose, locations of even the colors of the terrain. So, like, this is a photograph, satellite imagery taken from space. It's a serious detail in the imagery. When we look down, the brown kind of colors on the right, on the left-hand side, all down the west coast and underneath Dublin here, and northwest as well, and northeast as well, is all the mountainous areas. So we could look at those and get us thinking about what kind of life is like in the mountains compared to elsewhere in Ireland, etc. Um, we could look at other countries around the world in terms of scale, size. If we're learning about Italy or learning about Brazil or whatnot, we might like scroll down on Italy and to get children to observe the size, the shape of the country, what these colors mean, because they see it's satellite imagery, so it's really easy. Well, it should be more easier for children to understand what they actually are, because we're looking at green, just say farmland or agricultural land or forestry, or what this white area here is the Alps, the Italian Alps, the Swiss Alps, etc. That is all snow then as well, and the ice caps. So we can actually see then different types of terrain very clearly. For instance, as well, when we're learning about Brazil, we can see very clearly the Amazon rainforest here and the Amazon River in the north, and that deep dark green is actually all forest, whereas then the browner area over here on the east coast is all mountainous region as well. So it's the same kind of thing, but just to highlight those things. What you'll notice when I'm scrolling around here as well is there's a lot of labels popping up all over the place, okay? And what that means is that, I suppose, if I go to my layers here at the bottom left-hand corner, it says base map. I can click on clean, which will give me an image of nothing, no labels, nothing, just the satellite imagery pure in its purest format. Or I can click on everything, and that'll give me roads, motorways, railway lines, public transport, but it's also quite messy. So, for instance, if I zoom down to Dublin, Drumcondra, North Dublin, where I actually work, you can see here when I show everything, all the roads, the streets, the businesses, it becomes very messy for children to look at. I'm not going to print that off and have random things like the Cat and Cage pub or community school or B&B come up. Whereas I would prefer to use either clean, which has literally nothing, or exploration. The other thing you're going to notice as well is that you have this it automatically puts 3D buildings on, okay? So you need to make sure you've 3D buildings turned off unless you're using them for a specific reason. And I'll show you kind of why that is as well. So for instance, if you go back out just for a second, just to get used to toggling around and zooming in and zooming out, if we were to look at, it's an incredible resource for looking at like I suppose, real places and making them real for children in the classroom. So, for instance, we could look at a very, very famous mountain here in the west coast of Ireland, outside Westport, called Patrick, right? And we can zoom down here and we can see from directly above what it looks like in terms of it's a lot of stony, eroded land. We can see the trail coming up where people, hundreds of people or thousands of people, go up and down Patrick on Reek Sunday, and any other day as well. So erosion is a big thing there as well. But we can see the vegetation line, we can see the steepest parts and the gentler slopes. But what I could do is turn on my 3D. So it says 3D buildings, but it means 3D for everything really. And if I right click on the very, very peak of Patrick and I say orbit this location, it'll give me a sense of what it actually looks like. I can zoom out during this orbit or zoom in, but I can actually get children then to observe, I suppose, what's on top of the mountain in terms of the church, but also the steep slopes here either side, and then the gentler slopes where the path actually goes. So that's why the paths go on gentler slopes. It's easier to climb up Patrick that way. I could even then stop my rotation here. I can zoom down further to see, again, you can see people, you can see the church here, but I could put it back into my 2D mode here, but I can drop down the Explorer. If I click on this Explorer for Street View, there's no actual roads I can go on here, but I can click on these blue little dots, and that's where people have taken photographs from on top of Patrick. So I can get a sense of then what it looks like to be on top of Patrick, what the materials are like, what the stones. It's very stony. There are some like moss and stuff growing there. There's the church, and there's the view out over Clew Bay. It gives me a sense of what this place is actually like. The view out over the rest of the mountains here, forestry down there as well. So we could actually get a sense of to bring virtual tours into the classroom, bring virtual fieldwork into the classroom, if you will, for children. So I click that yellow Explorer again to turn him off again. Okay. I'll go back to where we are here now just to show you kind of a few other aspects of this before I go into creating our own project. So there's lots of talking points around this. You could get children then to look at, I suppose, the more mountainous counties of Ireland, the least mountainous counties of Ireland, by actually comparing a satellite image of this to their atlases in third or fourth or fifth or sixth class, etc. Like I said, I'm going to keep it in Explorer for now, but I might actually, when I create a project, I'm going to create it in clean version. Okay, so I'm just going to show you then very easily how to make a project. So if we, for instance, if we look at the likes of Minute here, you'll notice, sorry, with the 3D buildings also, the reason why I say turn them off is because when we actually start annotating and drop in place marks and actually creating a project, they won't be all viewable if you've 3D buildings turned on. So 3D buildings turned on here, but there's nothing 3D in Minute. So Minute is like a normal town, I suppose, in Ireland, or village. It's not a village, but most of the places in Ireland will not be 3D. However, if I go again to where I work here in Drumcondra, you can see like significant buildings like around Dublin, or even lots of streets are in 3D, including Crow Park. If you let it load here for a second, you'll be able to see that as well. So we could actually, if I right click and orbit that, or I click the 3D function here first, you can see here then that we can actually see what Crow Park actually looks like in 3D. We can see some of the other buildings around it as well, like the streets are all in 3D here as well. The red brick Georgian style terraces and whatnot as well. But like I said, that's not available for everywhere. So like again, I'm telling you to go in there and turn 3D off. Okay. So what we're going to show you now is how to actually create your own Google Earth project. Okay. And I'll show you some examples of Google Earth projects that will I'll paste in the description below this video on YouTube here as well. So if we go to Minute here, there are a couple of things that we can actually explore around. If this was our local area, that we can use tools within Google Earth that we can use to explore this further, so we can get an idea. Satellite imagery is a lot easier for children to understand than maps, okay? And it is a form of mapping, it's digital mapping, but we can see straight away trees are trees, fields are fields, houses are houses, Like this is a large Tesco here in Maynooth, but like the canal, we can see features that they actually are what they are, if that makes sense. Even so much as the playground, we can actually see the different colored surfaces in the playground that children would be familiar with in this locality. So that idea of them being able to understand straight away without the need of a key or abstract kind of labels or whatever, that the map reading becomes a lot easier that way. What we could do now is actually look at how our area has changed in the immediate past. I suppose if I go to historical imagery, I can select on Maynooth here. I could select go back to 2020, or go back much, much further all the way to like it allows me to go back as far as I think the early 2000s. But even if I go back to 2017, we can see here certain changes. So like where this little Montessori or creche symbol is now is all green fields. If I scroll back forward then to 2024, for instance, we can see then that a brand new housing estate has developed here as well. So you can see different types of developments and changes that have occurred in the locality around that time. Okay. Similarly, if I drop down my Explorer here, on my yellow Explorer here on Street View, I'll be able to see this is that new estate here in Maynooth. So I can click on see more dates and I can scroll back to 2017. They're just beginning to build that, to construct it. 2011, there's no evidence of a housing estate in there at all. Okay, so we can see changes that have occurred in our locality in real time through this function. Okay, so it's something definitely worth exploring with a class. It's really, really interesting as well. I'll turn it off there again, and I'll reset my orientation back to north. So we get the idea of where we are again. But anyway, that's the idea behind that. So if I click on this hide historical imagery, it'll disappear again. If I click on it again, it'll appear and I can select the dates myself. Okay. But I'm going to go all the way back up to the current 2025 version and I'm going to hide the historical imagery. So I'm back to where I am. I'm going to, for the purpose of this now, I'm actually going to start to create a Google Earth project. And that could be for the purpose of showing different types of houses and homes in the locality, looking at jobs in the local area, maybe making a map or a project on that, maybe making a map or a project on recreational and sports facilities in our local area, or anything like that at all. You can get children to make a tourism map of their locality in terms of mapping out places where people could stay, accommodation, places to eat, things to do, places to visit, all of that, okay? And the 3D, the virtual fieldwork element of it that's on Google Maps also is here. So this yellow Explorer here, the show Street View, I can actually even, believe it or not, I can go and travel the canals. And in all of Ireland, the navigable rivers or canals, we can actually travel on those as well as driving on the roads. So Google has a 3D version of that as well that you could actually, it's definitely well worth having a look at and exploring as well. And children would love this. Like if you do projects on Italy, getting them to drive boats around Venice, for instance, or looking at different aspects of a different country like that is important too. But like we can see here, we're on a boat on the canal. There's all the ducks and the swans. But we could actually drive this canal along and see that it actually eventually reaches the Shannon in County Roscommon. Just outside Termonbarry. But there's loads of different things we could actually do with it. But just to show you that function of it as well. Okay, I'm going to turn that yellow Explorer off again. And like I said, we'll dive into creating a project. So as you can see, to create a project, I'm logged in already. There's my face in the corner, but I click on File, New Project. And I'm going to call this project YouTube video demo. Okay. We'll come back to what I can do with the project afterwards, but so this is my project. So this is a clean map that nobody else has access to right now because I haven't actually shared it. So I'm putting it on clean as well. There's literally no labels on it at all. Okay, now it's up to you. You can leave it on exploration if you wanted to, but I'm going to leave it that way myself. Okay, so anyone who's familiar with Maynooth will know that this is the avenue that links the town centre to Carton House. But there is a primary school here. So this could be my primary school that I want to actually include on my map. So what I could actually do here is to drop a place mark. This is add a place mark function here. I click on that and I click on wherever I want the place mark to be. And I can title that our school, for instance, okay? If that was our school. Now, what else I can actually do with this? It says add description or add media. So I could add a description and say, our primary school in Minute, or I could add a description about why this place is important. But I can also, and that's done, but I can also add, if I hold on to this for a second, if I click on edit, I can also add media. Okay, so it's quite um confusing the way Google have it, but you have to hover your mouse over the scroll bar on the right hand side to get it. If I add media here, I can actually upload a photograph I've taken myself, or I can add a photograph or a video from Google or from YouTube. So for instance, that school is the girls' primary school in Minute. Okay, so I can search that. I can search images and the presentation girls primary school. I have it here on the image. So I could actually look, well, that's the Montessori one, but whatever. I could look at this picture here, for instance, and I might add that picture or the picture of the crest to my. So if I save that image or I copy that image address, if I copy the image address, I can then add that URL. So from the video URL, I can add that here and press OK. So therefore, and press done. So therefore, when when children are using this project, they can click on our school and the crest will come up and a description of it as well. Okay. And all the other place marks that I add on the left-hand side will come up on this project as well. Okay, so I can add all these projects. The clue is that I need to zoom right down over wherever I'm adding these place marks and add the videos or add the images or details to it. But you're always creating a map for a reason or a purpose. I can also capture, like if I want a virtual, street view version of it as well if I wanted. So if I, for instance, was to actually wanted to capture being on the canal here, for instance, as one of my next stops, I can click down here on the bottom left. It says, oh, I don't know what happened there. Anyway, there should be an option here to add it to my, to add this view to my map. Yeah, here it is here at the top right. So capture this view, it says. So I capture it, so it's saved as untitled view. And if I go and edit that then, untitled view, I can call that Royal Canal Minute. Okay. And I can save that as well. So therefore, when I actually go out of my editing view and I go to slideshow, it'll show first our school and I click next in the bottom left hand corner and it'll fly us then to the Royal Canal in minutes. Okay, so you get the idea that we're adding different place marks to show different things. Other things I could actually do is I could actually, if I wanted to, I could actually measure distances or I can add paths. So I could actually add different forms of I suppose, routes from our school to different parts of the community or local area. For instance, so if I add, it says here, add a path or a polygon. I can add a path here from the school and I can bring it down through the main street. And I can use my scroll button on my mouse to zoom out or in as I'm doing it so I don't get lost. But I can focus on directional languages from the school to, for instance, the local playground here in the park. So to Harborfield Park here. And I double click that, save to project, and I can call that route or journey from school to playground. Okay. So we could save that as well. So I get children to record their journeys to and from school, for instance, or around the local area to get children thinking about how routes and wayfinding around the locality. Okay, that's another thing we could actually do. We could do a similar thing for around the school grounds if we wanted to, but that's just to give you an idea around it. Okay, so we can actually map routes and all that kind of thing. Other things I can actually do as well is I can actually map like physical features. I can actually create like a land use map of this. So if I was to actually just say map out some kind of recreational and sports facilities, if I go up to the north of the town here, you'll be able to see the GA pitch here at the GA club, both sides of the road. So if I wanted to actually create a land use map, I could actually highlight this whole area here. That's a couple of football and hurling pitches here. It's part of Minute GA. And I can edit that then. So I save it to the project and I can call it sports and rec for recreation. If I'm doing a project that just shows all the sports facilities and recreational facilities, the outline I have in orange, but if I'm doing all my sports facilities in green, for instance, I can do that. The opacity means how transparent it is. So I can make it completely transparent or completely full. And I can color it also in green. If that's my my uh whatever key that I want for recreational sports to be in green. And you can still see the GA pitch beyond it because I've let the opacity do that. So I can actually then change it to maybe 50% to make it more green and less transparent, etc. But you get the idea. So I could actually map out all the sports and rec facilities around our local area, for instance. Okay. So to give you an idea of, I suppose, some previous projects like that, here are a few that I've created before, and I'll put these into the link below as well for you to have a look at in your own time. So this was an A to Z of my locality for Maynooth as well. So what I could do is then put A, B, C, D to capture a sense of place for what this place is like, what is unique about Maynooth to people who live there, and that this project could be used then by people in other parts of Ireland or other parts of the world to learn about Maynooth as a place. So if I press slideshow, it'll take me to different places. So B is for the border of Meath and Kildare. So it's right outside Maynooth here. And it gives me a little description here. Although Maynooth is in County Kildare, it's very near the border, only 300 meters. Okay. And then C is for the Royal Canal. So it drops me down onto the canal like I showed you before. And it talks about where the canal goes. And I can actually look at some more pictures around that. And I've even added a map there to show where it actually leads to from Dublin the whole way to the Shannon, what boats look like. And there's even a video in there as well that you can actually click on as well. So when you click on those, children who are doing this project could actually look at this and look at a video on the canal and the Greenway about what that actually looks like. Okay. If I go to my next stop then, uh, D is for development, and it says here D is for development. Maynooth is a growing town. There are many new developments being built. Okay, and it gives me again examples that I can flick through about new developments in the town that are being built. E is for equestrian. There's an equestrian shop, and horse riding and equestrian business is very important in that area. F could be for the local fire station, for instance, which is here, and talk about jobs maybe that are linked to that also. But there's images then again of the fire station. G could be for the GAA club. H could be for Harbourfield Park. So the idea again that they get to see different elements, an encyclopedia for their local area. And it's a map, but it's also information and photographs. And they can explore this in more detail when they actually, if they wanted, by using the yellow Explorer and dropping down their pins to have a look at what this Harbourfield Park actually looks like in more detail again as well. For instance, so here we could actually walk down to the end of the street here, of the end of the park here, and have a look and see what it looks like. Okay, so there's loads of different options for this, but this is an example again, like I said, of like a local project that you could do for contrasting localities in Ireland compared to other parts of Ireland or compared to other parts of the world. Other examples of projects that I've done, with this is done actually during COVID times, but a lot of schools have added to it throughout the years. This is a geography of our food. So we've gotten children to actually go through maybe some items of food at home, or where a teacher would bring in items of food that they bought, in shopping, and look at the labels and see where they actually come from. So blueberries from Morocco, for instance. So it maps out where in Morocco these blueberries come from, and it also says the distance they travel to Ireland and the carbon that's involved. So to look at the carbon footprint of each of these products, where they come from, how long it takes to get there, how much CO2 is emitted by bringing this to from these places to our own countries. So an image of them, a description of it, butternut squash from Portugal, the distance it travels and the carbon from the carbon footprint, the food miles calculator. There's a foodmiles.com website that'll actually calculate that for you. But you can see spinach from Spain, green beans from Morocco. Where's our food come from? Why is it grown there? What is that linked to maybe the climate and the regions around there, but and the weather and the different climate patterns, but also maybe cheaper places to grow food. Could we grow more in Ireland, etc.? So it just gives us a map about like what Martin Luther King said: before you finish your breakfast, you've already depended on half the world, and that's more truer now than ever before. So that idea of looking at where our everyday food items actually come from, how they travel here, how sustainable or unsustainable that is. Okay, so that's a little project you could do. Another project I've done as well is looking at like ring forts. So it was a ring fort project, ring forts around Galway. So we actually mapped them and got to see, well, what makes them a ring fort? What do they actually look like? For children to understand how you can actually identify a ring fort. Why are there trees there now? Like, are fairy forts, the superstitions around maybe farmers not actually mowing them or farming with them, and what they were all used for, why there are so many in the area, what was their purpose back in the day when they actually were used as settlements back in medieval times, early medieval times in Ireland, and how many there are in our locality. Can we identify them? Could we learn about them more? So like it's very, very simple little project, but we can actually see that in very, very in great detail. We focused in that project on Rathgareen Ring Fort, which is excavated recently, and that's just another example again. So there are loads and loads of ways we can actually use Google Earth to actually help us board routes and journeys in our local area, to look at different land uses in the area. You can very clearly see golf courses here, the canals, the railways, the different types of facilities in the area, to get us a sense of place and sense of space at the same time. Okay, so that's just to show you the power and different tools that are available here in this. There's also a measurement tool for distances, so we could actually measure the distance between certain parts of the locality or the school grounds or whatever. For instance, the ruler icon here, I can click a point here and measure the whole length of the avenue here. And it comes to just under, it should come to a kilometer in general. We could compare that with a trundle wheel, linking to maths as well, to do accurate maps in senior level, to build accurate scales at senior level in primary school. Children also use this as a way of mapping in Minecraft, where they actually use the measurement tool to measure the buildings that they're actually trying to rebuild in Minecraft to emulate the locality. So you can actually do that too as well. You could actually measure the length and width of different buildings and try and build those then to scale in Minecraft or even in Lego, or a model, a 3D model of a map that you're trying to use in your school. Okay. There are loads and loads of different opportunities for it. The best thing now to do is, when I've made my project now, how do I share it? How do I make this usable for other users, other teachers to use, or other children to use in my class? I click share here, and it'll give me an option to share with specific people that I can actually add here. It's generally restricted, but I can leave it open to Dublin City University. That's where I work, and they're very strict on that. So I can have them as viewers or editors, whoever works in Dublin City University. But if you have a Gmail account outside of this, like so, which I do as well, you can, anyone who has the link, you can select anyone who has the link can access this, and they can actually view it themselves and play with it as well. Okay, so the best way for you to learn about this is to click on the samples below that I'll share under the description of this video, and you can explore it yourself as well. Okay, I hope this was helpful to you. Like I said, the power of this type of free resource is incredible. It's always constantly being updated as well. And just to bring real world into the classroom on the big screen for children, or on their iPads or their Google Chromebooks or whatever it is that they're using, it cannot be underestimated. I'll show you one more example of that. For instance, if we were to look at like the likes of Venice, um, which is always a popular place for children to actually learn about, but to understand what it actually looks like. So Old Venice here is on the coast, but we can actually drop down the Yellow Explorer again and see, there are some streets to Venice too, but a lot of it is on gondolas also. So we can actually have a look at the markets and the squares here and the tourists and what life is like in these places. But we can also actually, like I said, drop down the Explorer and go on a boat ride. Okay, to have a little look and see the bridges, the canals, and everything else. That's, I suppose, what this place is actually like, to develop a sense of place for, if I was here, how would I be getting around? What is the weather like here? What are people wearing? What are these barges being used for transporting goods? So deliveries, like, do you see post barges going by? You see barges with bins, so collecting bins. You see barges with cement mixers, construction barges for actually building stuff. Everything that we normally associate with on trucks or road transport in Ireland is all here on different types of barges as well. So police barges, fire barges, all that kind of thing as well. Anyway, it's just an interesting way of learning about a distant place. Like I said, I hope that's helpful for you. I'm going to stop sharing now and I'm going to turn off my record. And thank you very much.